Welcome to the Work in Real Life podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about the sticky topic that is pay. I'm Marcus Verrell.
And I'm Jenny Winspear.
To get things started, Jenny, hit us with some stats.
Okay, so when I was looking this up, I wanted to get a survey that was very credible and talk to a lot of people. So it was a YouGov study. 16,000 people took part, and they found that just 1 in 5 women, which is 21%, have successfully asked for a pay rise, compared to nearly a third of men, 31%. It found that women were far less likely to have asked for a pay increase than men. Nearly 2/3, 60%, of women said they have never requested a raise, compared to 48% of men.
Wow.
So that's my first stat.
That's quite a juicy stat, isn't it? that's a conversation starter. Yeah.
Also looked at the Office for National Statistics, which is a very credible source. Mm-hmm. They found in April to June 2023, the annual growth for regular pay, which is excluding bonuses, was 7.8%. And that number might not feel like it means anything, but it is the highest annual growth rate since comparable records began in 2001.
Crikey.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. I wonder if COVID, like not having pay rises in COVID, has had an impact on that. I then looked at Glassdoor, which most people hopefully will be familiar with, which says the average salary for an office worker is £27,113 per year in the United Kingdom.
Wow, that seems incredibly low.
But to live comfortably in the UK, comfortably being a key word, with some financial freedom and luxuries, you would need 33,600 as an individual.
Excellent. So we're already at a loss. Brilliant. Yeah.
So I was wondering, how responsible do you think companies are for ensuring people get a pay rise?
I mean, can I just say I love this topic because I just love talking about things that are difficult to talk about, and no one ever talks about this, especially in British culture. It just seems like an absolute
you're always told don't talk about your pay. You know, you're not allowed to talk about your pay.
But so how responsible are companies to ensure that people get pay rises? I mean, there's two sides to this. I actually think it's probably more up to the individual, mainly because I wouldn't ever want to put myself in a position where I'm relying on someone else to make sure that I'm not $6,000, was it, under what's considered comfortable.
Yep.
Caveat to that, however, I do think there should be a degree of we have minimum wage, right? And we have minimum living wage.
Yep.
I think 2 different things.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing to have. However, is that high enough? Probably not. So I don't think it's really on companies as such, because I think that by default a business is always going to try and cut costs, the bottom line. But I do think that government or regulatory bodies or anyone making legislation should probably try and make sure that no one's literally working however many hours they are a week and can't afford to live. And
I guess, to play devil's advocate then, do you not think that there's a social responsibility of organisations that as cost of living has gone up, they try and reflect those increases in salaries? And I mention this because actually I worked, one of the places I worked, and when I worked in HR, we had a new manager come in and they said, cost of living increases are bullshit, basically. We're not doing cost of living increases. Right. We need to look at market trends and benchmark people based on their salary. We shouldn't just be, someone can sit in a role doing, an administrative job for years, not actually change their roles and responsibilities. But because of cost of living increases, it will creep up and up and up.
Right.
So, but I don't know where I sit on that, because I kind of see both sides of the coin. I think it's important to look at market rate, but I also think that we should be taking into account the cost of living increases. I do think there's a bit of a social responsibility.
I think to even be, because there's 2 sides of the coin, right? To be competitive as a business, you need to be able to attract talent.
Yeah, very good point.
Part of attracting talent is obviously having a salary that is, appealing to someone that wants to go there. So it's a tricky one, because at the same time you're trying to save costs, but you're trying to attract talent. And also it's so dependent on the industry, right, that you're working in, because there's obviously you can take a look at other companies within a certain sector and go, okay, that's what people are paying. But it's also very hard to identify the kind of monetary value that someone's adding to a business, I think, because most roles, I mean, in my experience anyway, have kind of blurred edges. So to go, you're making us exactly this much money, unless you work in sales where it's like really cut and dry, is a bloody difficult thing to do, you know?
And so let's go back to your point about the individual then, the individual responsibility, because you touched on it, but we didn't expand on it.
I could see your eyes light up with that one.
Yeah, what do you, tell me more about that?
I mean, I just think that there's probably, the world is never going to be a perfect place. And I think by trying to make everything really fair, I don't always think that's the best way. Like, fairer, yes, but just going, right, everyone's going to get this much money and it's all going to be hunky-dory. Like, where does that end? Like, I'm not an economist, but surely you can't just keep going, yeah, have more money, and then stuff gets more expensive. Yeah, have more money, then stuff gets more... Like, I just can't quantify where that ends in my head.
Right.
But going back to, like, it being an individual's issue, or it's up to the individual, I wouldn't necessarily say, yeah, it's definitely, like, you know, I don't mean it in a horrible way. I mean it more in the way of, like, you're probably better off taking control of your own life, because a lot of what you're spending money on is a choice, right? And I don't mean right at the bottom. Like, if you're literally scraping by and a company's not paying you enough and you can't leave the job because of, you know, I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone with that regard. I'm more meaning the people that are maybe in kind of a comfortable job, aren't really putting maximum effort in, aren't looking outside of their job to make any other types of money, versus someone who's, like, you know, going out of their way to start a startup, to take risks with their money to try and get themselves more money.
Okay, are you on the Molly May 24 hours in a day hype? Is this where
I wouldn't say I'm fully on the hype, because I can, like I said, it's a very difficult thing to talk about, and I know that a lot of people are working really bloody hard. But I sympathise with that. I really do. Like, take nurses, for example. Like, I think it's disgraceful that they're paid as much as they are. The doctors debate, I'm very much with the side of the doctors. Like, I think they should get paid more, because you're literally saving lives. Do you know what I mean? Like, to me, that seems like a no-brainer. But if you're in a certain industry and you're just sort of ticking by and you're like, oh, everything's getting a bit more expensive, isn't it? I'm not putting in any more effort, but I want more money. I just don't like that ethos. I don't think that's a good ethos for an individual to have.
Okay.
I think it's kind of, you know, play the game, like, gamify. And I'm sure we'll go on to talk about how you could, like, play the game to get more money.
Yeah.
But I'd just encourage anyone to play the game a little bit before kind of kicking back and going, yeah, business needs to pay us.
We should get more money.
Yeah, like, do you know what I mean? It's like,
cost of living's gone up, but then actually not doing anything about it.
Like, take responsibility and be accountable for, like, your own position in life.
Okay.
I think. That sounds a bit ruthless, but that's kind of what I think. But how about you? Have you gone around getting a pay rise before? Like, you're looking at me as if you don't like that opinion at all.
No, I do like that opinion. I think, you know, we've said with the podcast before, we need to be mindful of the professions that we're in and the freedom that we have to kind of do this. Not everybody has that, and you've touched on that with the doctors and nurses. But I really love this topic because I have, like, 5 steps that I would suggest for asking a pay rise. They're not evidence-based, they're not research-backed. This is my personal approach to asking for a pay rise. So 5 steps.
Get your notepads out, guys.
Yeah, I'll get mine just to make sure I'm not missing any of the steps. So I think the key to this is crafting a solid email that they will find it very hard to say no. So the key in all of this is making a business case, basically, for getting a raise where it's very hard to say no to. So you need to deserve it, basically, is where I'm coming at. So the first thing I think you should do in order to ask for a pay rise is weeks before the performance review, have a one-to-one meeting with your manager and ask them for feedback. Take notes of the good feedback that they give you and the development areas, because then when you're crafting this email that I've talked about, you're very aligned to what they've said.
Right, okay? Smart.
So a couple of weeks before, use their language, you know, all that kind of stuff. Second thing is starting to craft the email. So performance reviews coming up. This is not a quick job. This needs to be a very good email. And the reason I do it in an email is because I find the conversation uncomfortable for both parties. I find that when you're asking for a pay rise, it's important to put a number to it and actually to look someone in the eye and be like, I want
Show me
this. Show me the money. We said that on
we're saying that every podcast. It's becoming a theme now.
I know. Yeah. So I think that's uncomfortable. So I think an email's good for both parties. It removes the uncomfortableness. In this email, it needs to say something along the lines of, ahead of our performance review next week. Then I suggest to start with where you started the year before. This time last year, I was doing XYZ. Moving on to this time this year, I'm doing XYZ. That shows you the developments. I think it's important to highlight your key achievements throughout the year. I delivered this. I brought in this new business. I managed this person. And then state any additional responsibilities you have going forward. So basically, you are building a business case to make it very easy to go, look how far they've come, look what they've delivered this year, and look what they're going to deliver next year. So that was actually point 2, crafting an email. Point 3 is to give a number. So in order to do this...
It's juicy, isn't it? Because how do you work the number out? That's what I want to know.
Okay.
Like...
So in order to do this, you need to absolutely research your market. So in that email that you've just crafted, you should now have a list of your roles and responsibilities and the key things that you deliver. Job title might not necessarily be exactly the same. Go to Google, look on places like Glassdoor, look at current job advertisements for a similar role. And to give context, my role's a bit of a hybrid role. So it was not a straightforward of going in and saying, I'm running a startup, I'm a wellbeing consultant, you know, I deliver this and I do this. I had to piece it all together from different places. Basically looked at like Deloitte, other big consultancies and their pay brackets, because you can find that stuff on Glassdoor. Pick a number that you're comfortable with and that you think you deserve. And then, this is my step 4. It's slightly uncomfortable and it's a secret because I'm going to cringe when my boss hears this because she's going to know going forward.
Yeah.
Always ask for at least 3 to 5k more than what you're comfortable with.
Yeah. No.
Always. Get that number that you're like, that is the number I want. I want 50k. I'm comfortable with that. I've done my research. I know that's what I deserve. Ask for 55. Even if it feels like, God, that's 10k extra than what I'm earning at the moment. That feels like such a reach. Just do it. Because the worst thing, just do it. The worst thing they can do is they'll take all of your information. You'll say, I've researched the market. This is what I believe that I'm capable of earning. If I were to go elsewhere, I want to stay with this company, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll go, okay, well, maybe that's a bit too high. We don't pay our other whatever this rate, so let's go a little bit lower. And then they'll give you the number that you actually feel that you deserve. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Without good reason, you know. I'm talking about a workplace that is able to have open and honest conversations and is relatively transparent. They don't need to be transparent on the numbers, but they do need to be transparent on the rationale. So then my point number 5 of how to ask for a pay rise. At the very end of the email, offer your thanks for what they've had, the input that they've had into your development. Grateful for the opportunity, love working here. End on a really positive note and round it all up. Otherwise
I'm going to leave.
And then offer them to be able to use it in further discussions.
Yeah.
So often your manager is not the only person who's going to have an input or a decision-making authority over your review. If you've crafted this email, put all the good points in and then say, happy for you to use this elsewhere, it gives them a platform to be able to then say, right, here's all the points. This is why I think. Hopefully they've got your back and they're going to say, yeah.
And they can go up the chain if they need to with the stuff you provided.
I mean, that's my method. Well, I kind of jumped around the house. There's lots of stuff in there.
No, I think that I agree with absolutely everything you've said. I mean, one negotiation hack thing that I've always heard of, especially when it comes to numbers, which you could add into that quite nicely. I mean, I would more go for the in-person approach, but prepare what you've said as almost like, the approach I would take is basically do what you've done.
Yeah.
But I would initiate a meeting to have that conversation with the prep work done,
right,
of like, here are my numbers, here's my performance, whatever. But I think when you're talking about numbers, in my experience, when you say a number or you're asking for something, don't be the first one to speak afterwards.
Yeah.
There will be an awkward silence.
Let it hang.
It will be too long, but I can't remember where I've heard this. It might even be like a poker thing, I don't know. But basically, in a negotiation,
bluff it.
Yeah, but no, just basically like you're saying there, 55k.
Yeah.
wait, don't don't like feel the pressure and then go, oh, actually, but I would take 50. Wait for them.
Just deadpan.
Yeah, deadpan, blue steel. Wait for them to respond. But another little tip as well to add into what you were saying there is like when get very good at logging the stuff that you've done throughout the year or throughout the period of time at a company, because it can be quite difficult, again, depending on the industry, but like in marketing, there's a lot of performance stuff where you have a lot of stats that you can refer to and you can be like, I've increased this that much web traffic, blah, blah, blah. But when you start talking about more fluffy, less numbered stuff, you know, you need to be able to go, oh, I, you know, did a brand partnership with so-and-so and oversaw a strategy, for example, and write all that stuff down. So, and make a little folder in a Google Drive or whatever, and just have all your little lists of how awesome I am to go into that meeting. So in case it comes up, you know. It
does feel very uncomfortable because obviously you're having to promote yourself, and that doesn't come naturally to a lot of people.
No.
So... But I do think that if you don't ask, you don't get.
Absolutely. I mean, generally, what is the worst that can happen?
They're going to say no.
Well, and I don't think you can really get fired for asking for a pay rise.
No, not at all. And if anything, if you overshoot the mark and they do say no, you can say, okay, what are the reasons for that? Because I did my research. I felt like I was meeting these role requirements.
Yeah.
What do I need to do to get there? And hopefully you'll get some constructive feedback about what it takes to reach that next level.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it does feel uncomfortable, and no one likes doing it. I don't know. Do you
I like self-promotion, but I know what you mean. Those conversations aren't easy. But in my experience, and I said that I might bring this up before, but I've basically not ever had a job where I've not at least asked for a pay rise. Okay. And it's just so happens that whether that's my own arrogance or like heightened view on myself or whatever, but I would say over 90% of the time it's worked. But I've literally, like you said, I've done what you've said.
Yeah.
I've made a very good evidence-based argument for said pay rise. Also consulted the initial job description that I was given when I was offered the job, and then basically gone, right, here's everything I've done, here's everything you told me I was going to be doing for this salary. This is where the gaps are. But I think from a marketing perspective as well, when you're wanting to get something from someone, focus on the value you're providing them, not what you want.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. Be the master of your own destiny.
Yeah, and just basically talk more about the value you're providing them rather than what it is that you want. So in case they don't already know how valuable they are, or you are, they now know.
Yeah.
Like that's how I would...
Hopefully they do know.
Yeah, I mean, they should know, otherwise they're a bad boss, right? But we won't go there.
Is there anything that you would say not to do when asking for a pay rise?
I mean, other than focusing too much on what you want, I think knowing the time to ask as well. Like, there is usually periods of a year where people are like stuck in budgets and stuff for the year ahead.
Yeah, know that schedule. Yeah. That's so important actually. And a lot of people will wait till they get their review and the salary, and then they'll go back to it.
Yeah.
And from working in HR previously, that stuff is just so difficult because it then has to go through all the decision-making process all over again. It's better to get in before those decisions have been made. So yeah, timing is everything.
Yeah, timing's everything. Obviously, I mean, there's probably, in some businesses, there's never going to be a good time to have that conversation. But, you know, just try and use your kind of human to human skill and understand when someone's, you know, maybe having a bad day, it's not a good time to have that conversation. Just try and pick a good time where you think, do you know what, this is the time to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And go for it. But in terms of anything else to definitely not do, I wouldn't bring up anyone else.
I was going to say that. So I think if you're like, well, Bob's getting paid this, why am I not getting paid as much as Bob?
Yeah.
That is just a no-no.
Yeah, I don't think it should, unless it's maybe not an individual at another company, but like you were saying, they're like a market rate. Like be anonymized with it. So you're going, well, this social media manager at XYZ company, or they're listing a job that you know, that is this much.
Yeah.
Where was the juicy question that I wanted to ask you?
Is it about things other than compensation?
Yeah. So like, if you've had this conversation that we've just discussed, they turn around and they're like, look, there is no money in the pot. There is no money. In terms of money, there is no money. Like, what else would you advise to ask for in terms of like compensation?
Okay, really interesting. So basically, okay, there's no money in the pot. You're not getting a salary. Your email was well crafted, but you're just not getting a salary increase. Okay, I'm just visualizing the situation. I think I would have to. I feel like you have to stand your ground a little bit because you're kind of knowing what you deserve, but also take into consideration the other benefits that the business offers. So maybe if there's no money in the pot for your salary increase, there might be money in another budget to do new learning and development, or you might be able to have more flexibility in the role that you're doing, or, you know, maybe, I don't know, a lot of things
Shares
cost
in the
money.
business.
Yeah, shares. Yeah, that's a great one.
Become a, what's it called, like a director, but like an unpaid director,
Yeah,
but so
yeah.
you can basically
Be in decision-making process.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think a good thing to do is basically anything that's going to make it appear as if you're more important than you are. Marketing hat on 101. Do you know what I mean? But like you're saying,
Give me a better job title.
No, but I think they actually do, in my experience, when you're like hiring people and you go through, job titles don't mean that much until you're looking at a CV and you go, oh, manager, or oh, you know, supervisor, or whatever it is. So even if it is a slight change, and then once you've actually implemented that slight change to what you're being referred to, it's then a lot easier, in my experience, to open up the conversation about more money later down the line.
Yeah.
Because you're then kind of, when you do that process of comparing against industry standards, you're comparing manager roles instead of executive roles or whatever you call it. But one thing I definitely did want to ask is, like, do you think everyone in a company should know how much each other are making? Or, caveat, do you think everyone should know how much the CEO is making in a company?
Ooh, two very different questions. So I think transparent pay is a very good thing, especially when you're paying fairly. Like, I think you should be paying fairly. I think as a business, you should be researching market rates. You need to offer salaries that are competitive. And if you're doing that, why not be transparent? I think there is risk in being fully transparent in that some people might see someone who gets paid more than them and knows that they don't put any effort in. They are on that rate because it's their job title and they have all these roles and responsibilities that they're supposed to be doing, but they don't actually deliver. Person below them picks up all the groundwork and does all that stuff and then sees this person getting paid more and they're like, well, this isn't fair. But also, now that I'm saying that out loud, I'm kind of like, well, maybe that's a good thing, that they then will feel emboldened to actually say, well, actually, I'm doing all this work and I should probably get paid.
Well, I know there is places around the world where there is way more pay transparency, right? And I don't know whether or not that it's a better work environment or not, but I completely agree. It's like, so there's so many arguments either way. But one thing I do think is annoying is when you're, and I don't really understand it as much, is when you're looking for jobs and they don't list the salary and they say competitive rates, and you're like, well,
but what is that?
Say I am a successful candidate, you see my CV, I get a job on interview, you really like me, I do another interview,
waste of everyone's time,
and then at the end just like, it's £10 a year. You're like, what do you know what I mean? Like, what a
waste of time.
What a waste of everyone's time.
I hate it. I think it needs to be on job descriptions, flat out.
For sure.
Definitely on job descriptions. On the CEO point, do we say how much the CEO is getting paid? I'm not sure on that one. I honestly
don't know.
I don't know either way. I don't feel strongly either way. I don't know if it's the British in me that's like whoa, that's like way too much information.
Well, in my experience, I have been somewhere where everyone could see what the CEO was being paid, and rarely did a conversation come up about it. But when a conversation did come up about it, there was definitely an animosity towards like, well, how come they're getting this much? But I think the trouble is not every role that anyone's doing, the value of that role isn't always super visible to the team. Some people have roles that are really valuable and visible to the team. Some people have roles that are really valuable but visible externally to clients that other people don't see. So it's like, it's catch-22. It's tricky, But what about a pay cut? When would you ever suggest to anyone to take a pay cut?
I would take a pay cut for a really good opportunity. That being said, it's very hard to be living to a certain means and then drop down.
And then go,
I would do it if I was reskilling. So if I suddenly decided to become a coder, and
Interesting
did some
choice.
like, that's what I would be if I wasn't a psychologist.
Yeah.
I
Love
would go back
coding.
and do coding.
Yeah.
Then I would expect a pay job. I'm not experienced in that space, and I would have to start from the bottom again.
Yeah.
But you live to your means, don't you? So it would be very difficult. Is there anything you would take a pay cut for?
I mean, I think it depends on the cut, and I think you're completely right. But I think an indication that you would or should take a pay cut is like, are you waking up every day hating your job? Are you waking up every day going, do you know what? I've bought a few more pairs of trainers this month. I've gone on a nice holiday to Bali or wherever other holidays are available. And
No,
you're like,
you go on holiday.
yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like Bahamas, that's more what I meant.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean? So you've done the fancy holidays and you're just like, do you know what? I'm not feeling fulfilled.
Yeah.
I think less money but fulfillment is obviously way better. And I think in my experience, like going from a job that is, I've never really had like a poorly paid job because I've tried to find the value in every job that I've done, and more money is great, but you definitely hit a ceiling of like, oh, okay, I'm earning this much money, but and not 8-9 hours of a day.
It's
I'm
going
like,
back to our whole purpose discussion.
yeah, you have to find a purpose,
yeah.
otherwise you just
Which we talked about on a previous podcast.
yeah, so check that podcast out. But I think it's so relevant, and I think it's so true. For this part of the show, we're going to do a quick fire would you rather round.
Exciting.
So, first question, would you rather have a pay rise or more annual leave?
I would rather... how much more annual leave? Like 5 days?
Yeah, we'll go with 5
Depends how
days.
much, yeah. I think more annual leave.
Okay, so would you rather buy products that are eco-friendly but more expensive or budget-friendly?
I think I would go... I really want to say eco-friendly.
Really want to, but what would you actually do?
But I still do a little bit of shopping on the shops you're not
You're on
supposed to.
boohoo.com every night. Yeah.
Probably budget friendly.
Budget friendly.
But I do take sustainability into account where
you can.
yes.
Yeah, for sure. More money, or would you rather have more money or more time?
More time in life.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we should have
Live
probably fleshed
longer?
out that question. But maybe like within a year, would you rather have like more time or more money?
So would you? Well, that could even be like, would you rather go part time? Because that could be that. But I think more money.
More yeah, time sounds good, but you know what? More money. Okay. Would you rather? This is kind of similar to the other one, but would you rather spend on holidays or spend on the latest tech?
Holidays every day.
Yeah, you strike me as a holidays person. to
Are
be
you
fair.
latest tech?
I mean, I'm like more of a build roots and foundations rather than take flights kind of guy. I think, don't get me wrong, I like a holiday.
Apparently that's a Gen Z and millennial difference as well, but I know you're a millennial too, so
Well,
millennials
I'm
would
on the
rather
cusp,
travel.
apparently.
Oh,
I can't.
all right.
my face tattoos and my mother say otherwise, right?
Okay, right, I've got 4 for you.
Go for it.
Okay, so online shopping or physical location shopping?
Physical location shopping every time. I hate online shopping, and Jersey sucks for physical shopping, and I really miss living in London where you can go get a pair of jeans at 9 o'clock at night.
That's very true. Although online shopping, you can compare prices and products.
Can compare prices, but being the 5'6", slightly wide but short person that I am, nothing ever fits. So the amount of shopping I do online versus the amount that gets sent back is not doing the environment any favours.
Okay. Okay, so monetary bonus or more work social events?
Definitely money over work socials.
Yeah.
I'm not big on the whole work socials.
Okay.
I mean, have fun. It depends. If the work social is like, let's have an afternoon off and go and get pissed at the pub, I can go with that. If it's like
after work hours.
time and it's like, oh, we're going to go bowling.
I was going to suggest bowling.
Do you know what I mean?
Nothing wrong with bowling.
Not so keen. I'd rather have the money.
Okay, so would you rather be in a job you enjoy with less pay or a job you don't with more pay?
The first one, I think. So
Yeah.
I'd definitely rather be working a job that, as long as I can get by, less pay, more enjoyment, feeling more valuable, definitely.
Great. And on a similar vein, but good team, bad pay, good team? Which one?
Ooh. I mean, I'm quite good at dealing with annoying people, I think.
Oh, okay.
One
so
of
you're
my
gonna get paid this
one of
time.
my beige flags, I think, is kind of putting up with people I find annoying.
What's a beige flag?
Well, the opposite to a red flag.
Is that not green
Have
flag?
you not seen this trending on
Oh.
Instagram? This is a whole hashtag you haven't discovered yet.
How exciting.
But
You're going to have to go use this later.
no, well, I don't find, like, yeah, I feel like I get along with quite a lot of people. So for it to be a bad team, it'd
You'll
have to
deal
be
with
like,
the annoying people.
yeah, it'd
for
have to
more
be
money.
really, really bad. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think there's a point where obviously enough money shuts anyone up. You're like, okay, I can deal with, like, I've done a lot worse than deal with annoying people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, so I think
Cool.
the money.
Nice.
Show me the money.
Classic.
Clip every podcast. Show me the money.
It's going to become our catchphrase.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we did hashtag show me the money. Yeah. So end of quickfire round,
Yep.
but we're on to our finalising piece of each of the podcasts, which is our 30 before 30. So basically, this week's 30 before 30 is, according to CNN, you should have your annual salary in your savings by the time you are 30.
Oh, heck. That's a crazy amount.
Well, it depends on your salary, right?
So we're talking about whether we think this is a good expectation or not. Should we have
Yeah.
our annual salary in our savings? I mean, with the house prices these days, like, that's just where's this come from? How old
Well,
is this data?
I think this combines like stuff you might have paid into a pension or investments.
Right, okay, that changes things. Although I don't have a pension. So.
I don't either.
Do you?
If anyone wants to provide pensions for Jenny and I, that would be great. You could be a sponsor of the podcast.
Yeah, I think that's just totally unrealistic. I mean, I say no to all of these because I feel like at any age, but I do think you should have savings.
Yes.
Whether or not it equates to your full annual salary, I feel like that's
Maybe a good thing to aim for.
a good thing to aim for, but like, I mean, it depends if you already bought a house or not, because if you already bought a house, you're definitely not going to have that in savings.
Yeah, true. But if you, then I'd maybe class that as achieving that, really. 'Cause if
Okay,
you've
so
got
that would be your
equity-
investment.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Yeah,
understanding.
like say
the
you're on
question.
30k, you get to 30 and you've got 30k of equity in a property. I think you're
Right.
doing pretty good because I definitely haven't got that.
Oh, well, that changes things. Then maybe yes.
Yeah. Well, I actually think that it's not a bad shout at all.
Yeah.
I'm very, like I was saying there about putting roots down kind of guy. I love a rainy day fund,
Me too.
but I've probably got more of like a rainy year fund on the go.
Me too.
Because I really don't like, and mainly because I quite like the idea of one day just going, do you know what? Fuck it. I'm not that I ever will.
I'm going to go travelling for a year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I definitely won't. But it's nice knowing that you could do something stupid financially. Do you know what I mean?
I feel
Like,
the same.
Knowing that you could just go. That's why I got a credit card. I didn't need a credit card, but I was like, I'd quite like to know that I've just got like nearly 10 grand sitting there that I can spend on something I absolutely do not need if I want to. You know?
Okay, well, refining the question, I think if we include investments and property purchases, which obviously is an investment, then maybe yes.
Yeah.
I would change my answer.
Yeah.
I do think you should have your annual salary in
In your savings.
unless you've
you
gone
don't
travelling.
like saying it out loud. do you? You're like, actually.
Unless you've gone travelling for a year and already spent it all.
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of YOLO to it, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because I think if you're confident in your capacity to earn more money later in life and you're building for the future, then fuck it.
Go for it.
Yeah, go for it. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Work in Real Life podcast. I've been Marcus Verrell.
And I'm Jenny Winspear.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment below, and we will catch you on the next pod.